And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Well, tonight's weather showing the next system pushing rain into the Pribilof Islands and across the eastern Aleutians in toward the Alaska Peninsula. Kind of a break, higher pressure here, drying it out over Bristol Bay and into the southern Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak area. Some showers still moving east-northeastward here, Prince William Sound into the Copper River Basin. And then the main front here weakening into a trough with quite an area of rain here along the Brooks Range right up to the eastern Arctic coast. And rain and showers down along this trough axis right in along and off the southeast coast. For tomorrow, mostly cloudy, scattered showers for the Panhandle, and partly cloudy for Cook Inlet. Otherwise, farther to the north and northeast, it'll be mostly cloudy with showers, especially here in the Kuskokwim Valley, right on up into the central interior, and actually on out across the Brooks Range to the eastern Arctic coast. Scattered showers over the western interior and dry, looks like, Bristol Bay, northern Bering Sea, and the western Arctic coast. This weakening front spreads rain or continues rain over the Alaska Peninsula back over to the Pribilof Islands. And for Sunday, could see some sunshine here across the southern Bering Sea at times, otherwise isolated showers to the eastern Aleutians into the Alaska Peninsula. A little bit more widespread showers, another trough rotating around this low there off the Yukon Delta coast. So wet conditions, cloudy skies, Yukon Kuskokwim Delta, Nunivak Island on up toward Gamble and Savunga. In the interior, partly cloudy to mostly cloudy with scattered showers, especially over the east side here. And still pretty cloudy with light rain and showers across the southeast coast. Coastal water forecast, west winds on the south coast 10 to 15 knots. West 10 to 20 knots for the north coast. And for Lynn Canal, look for south winds at 20 knots for Saturday, southeast at 15 for Stevens Passage, southeast at 20 for Clarence Strait. And for Sunday, here on the south coast, west winds 10 knots and east winds 15 knots on the north coast, southeast at 10 for Lynn Canal, Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait, winds southeasterly at about 15 knots. And for Prince William Sound, eastern North Gulf Coast, light variable winds Saturday at 10 knots, south 20 knots here for the western North Gulf Coast. Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, west winds 20 knots, Cook Inlet, southerlies 15 to 20. And for Sunday, lighter winds here in Cook Inlet out of the south at 10. Otherwise, for Kamishak Bay and the western North Gulf Coast, Barren Islands, east winds or east-southeasterlies at 15. Variable 10 to 15 knot winds for the eastern North Gulf Coast and light east winds for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, southwest winds 15 knots for Saturday, southeast at 10 knots for Bristol Bay. Alaska Peninsula, southwest winds 20 knots with 3 to 6 foot seas. For Sunday, 20 knot winds here, Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, right on up across Bristol Bay. And for Kodiak Island, variable to southwest winds 10 to 15 knots. And then for Saturday, central eastern Aleutians, small craft advisory, southwest winds 25 knots. Western Aleutians, north to southwest winds at 15 to 25 knots. For Sunday, western Aleutians, variable winds 10 to 15 knots. Adak and Atka, west at 15, and for the eastern Aleutians, west-southwest winds 15 to 20 knots. Southwest coast for Saturday, south to southeast winds at about 10 knots. West winds here, St. Lawrence Island into Norton Sound at 15 to 20 knots. Light variable winds there over the northern Bering Sea and southeast at 20 for the Pribilofs. Those will swing around to the northwest at 15 knots for St. Paul and St. George. Light variable winds continue here for St. Matthew Island. East winds 15 knots, Yukon Delta coast to St. Lawrence Island. Southeast 15 for the Kuskokwim Delta coast. And for the Chukchi Sea tomorrow, north to northwest winds 15 to 25 knots. Northeast at 20 for the western Arctic coast, central coast up there, east winds at 20 knots. Small craft advisory for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, northeasterlies at 25 knots. And then for Sunday, eastern coast up here, east-northeast 15 to 20 knots. The remainder of the Arctic coast, looking at east winds at 15 knots in the Chukchi Sea, north winds 15 to 20 knots.